Welcome to the Tower Talk podcast, a place for honest and open conversations to support you in living your best life from the inside out. Join me on this journey of self-discovery as we explore what it means to reach next level badassery and cut through the BS. So tune in, stay a while, and I promise I'll be right here alongside you as we figure this shit out together. Ashley Nowe, thank you so much. Welcome to the Tower Talk. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Ashley is just a wealth of knowledge in the Instagram world, has her own app called Slam, Strong Like a Mother, and she is just an incredible human all around. So, Ashley, welcome and introduce yourself to everybody.
Thanks for having me. So yeah, I founded Get Mom Strong after I had twins. They were 7 and 6 pounds, so hefty twins, and I experienced really gnarly diastasis recti. And after I figured out how to heal, I said, you know what, I gotta bring this to the world. And I created Strong Like a Mother, and there built an app shortly thereafter to try and spread the knowledge that we can actually heal and stay really strong postpartum and throughout pregnancy.
Yeah. So, first of all, tell us about your app. And also, I love that it's Slam and you just use that around because it's such a great name and it works really well together. So, tell us about the app and what it does for women that want to join.
Yeah. So Strong Like a Mother Slam, it has everything for the whole continuum of motherhood. So I say from preconception all the way through, grandma strong. It's built for every level, so beginner to advanced. And of course, there's a pregnancy program, lots of postpartum tips. What makes it really special that tooting my own horn, but I knew it didn't exist when I was going through this, is it's not just boring rehab. Like I take a total body approach to healing postpartum. So you're actually going to get like a sweaty, fun, challenging workout while also, loving on your pelvic floor and core, which it needs postpartum.
Yeah. And so, first of all, let's go back. You had twins, and did you know that you were having twins? Is it like, does that run in your family?
No, we use fertility. So
Okay.
I'm an IVF mom. Yep. So we knew we put two embryos in and we're like, well, let's see what happens. And they both
Yeah.
stuck.
We'll see what happens. And here you are with twins. And
Yeah.
then you went on to having a couple more, right? How many kids do you have?
So I have an older one. I had a singleton, and
Okay.
then I had the twins, and then I adopted a baby boy just about a year ago. He's 16 months.
Yeah. So four kids. How is
Four
that?
boys. I'm tired.
I'm
I'm
like,
tired.
moms need like way more credit because you are a superhero. You have your own business and four kids.
Yeah. I mean, I have a husband, a partner who helps, right? I think that
Yeah.
that's impactful. And
Yeah.
one of my best friend helps me out with the baby from 9 to 2 p.m. every day, which is
Amazing.
really helpful. I
Yeah.
don't think I could do it without, quote, a village, right? We have to
Yeah.
kind of build our own these days, but
Of course.
um,
Yeah.
throwing that out there because I've also stayed completely home with kids. And for the moms who are out there, that is the hardest job. So I have help.
Okay. Do you feel like staying home is harder than how you have it right now?
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. Staying
I
home
can't
is
imagine.
so hard.
Yeah.
Like the lack of mental stimulation, and you're just in the thick of it. You don't get that break, right? Working for me is a break.
Yeah.
You feel guilt. Don't get me wrong. Like there's pros and cons to both. I've really
Yeah.
kind of had it always. Where I've worked in an office and had kids, and I've stayed completely home and had kids, and I've done
Yeah.
kind of this hybrid version of what I'm doing now. I have to say, I like the hybrid version the most because you kind of get that mental stimulation and that break, but you're also
Yeah.
present. So I work from home. I'm here. I get to
Yeah.
pop in and see him even when I have help, but couldn't
Awesome.
run a business without help. So I don't want women to feel like they have to do it all because it's just impossible.
Yeah. So your oldest, how old is your oldest now?
He's 15.
Okay, 15. So did you go through any of the stuff that you are talking about today, like diastasis recti or okay.
Oh my God, I had him and quintessential bounce back. Like it was obnoxious. Like
Okay.
had him and weeks later, six pack, felt like I was in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
No issues. And I had a C-section with him. So I thought it would be the same naively. I really went into that second pregnancy thinking, yeah, I know what to do.
Okay.
All I have to do is work hard. And I think that's a really big misnomer out there because nobody worked harder than me and I still had all of these issues. And it also goes to show that pregnancies are different, right?
Yeah.
Every pregnancy you have is different. Like you expect it to go the same, like, oh, I know what I'm doing. It's different. Every pregnancy is different. Every postpartum experience is different from, one child to the next. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important note.
So how did you actually figure that out then? Were you already pregnant or were you kind of like looking into some pelvic floor and like understanding that as you were getting into your second pregnancy?
Oh no, so it was a train wreck. I
Okay.
learned the hard way. I learned the mega hard way. So I had the twins, 7 and 6
Yeah.
pounds. I was big into CrossFit before I got pregnant with them. I actually competed in regionals. It was my thing. Got pregnant with the twins. They're very big. Stretch things out to say that I always joke I have hips like a teenage boy, right? Like there's nowhere for humans to grow except for
Yeah.
straight out. So went to my OBGYN for the quintessential 6-week check, and she was like, you know what? Everything's good. I said, okay, I can run. Yep. Can do sit-ups, crunches. Yep. So what do you think I did? I am like type A. I love to exercise. It's my therapy.
Yeah.
I went home and started doing sit-ups and going for runs and doing CrossFit and lifting really heavy. And at about six
Okay.
months postpartum, I was like, I actually Googled, there's a football popping out of my stomach. It looked like when I did sit-ups, like that there was a football shape dome coming out of my stomach. And that's how I found out I had diastasis recti. So I went to my OBGYN and I was like, yo, like my abdominal muscles are jacked. Like, what do I do? And she's like, are you going to compete in any bodybuilding competitions? I thought it was like the weirdest question. I was like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, well, you can get a tummy tuck. So I literally sat in my car and cried because I thought the only option I had was surgery.
Yeah.
And then I went down the interweb rabbit hole of trying to figure it out myself and found pelvic floor physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what changed my whole life. I found a pelvic floor PT local to me, and she really took me under her wing and taught me so much. And after I was kind of cleared, and I'm going to use healed in air quotes because it's always an ongoing process, but
Right.
I actually called her from the T-ball field and I said, like, why don't we teach everybody this?
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm athletic. I went into this pregnancy an athlete.
Yeah.
Why did I not know how to take care of my body during pregnancy and postpartum? Why are OBGYNs telling us,
It's
well,
all good.
it's just part of motherhood. Shrug it off.
Yeah. And so what happened? What did she do?
I mean, I cried, I left. I went to
Yeah.
pelvic floor PT and then, the PT was like, "Yeah, let's do this." So she took me
Yeah.
under her wing, let me sort of apprentice under her. And
Right.
then I went and got trained to be a pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist.
Cool.
I launched
And you're
getting on
like,
strong. I didn't even know how to
yeah.
use Instagram. This is, I
Y-
don't know, probably 7 years ago. Like I didn't
I
even
was gonna
know.
say, but you've been around for a while. Like you've been
Yeah.
posting on there for a long time, like showcasing all your knowledge. So okay, so it took you basically 6 months after your pregnancy with twins for you to see this, which is there a technical term for the football that you're talking about, or is it
Yeah, that's
just
diastasis recti.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a thinning of the connective tissue between your
Yep.
six-pack muscles. So if you think about like, the infamous six-pack muscles,
Yeah.
we have connective tissue that runs in a line between those muscles. So when you see the six pack, you think about it like 2 3 packs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You could see that line, that definition. Well, during pregnancy, that connective tissue thins and widens and expands
Right.
to make room for baby, which is a brilliant mechanism that the body does. It's like, oh yeah, we'll make room here. And so
Yeah.
those six-pack muscles separate into 2 3 packs, kind of divided even further.
Right.
And postpartum, oftentimes it'll heal itself, but a lot of
Okay.
times it doesn't. I always like to give the analogy of a hair tie. If you stretch and pull on a hair tie a whole bunch of times and use it over and over again, it gets to be loose and lax. And it's kind of the same with our connective tissue. The more it's stretched out and asked to expand, the
Yeah.
less likely you are to get that snap back.
Is it more likely to happen if you have twins or have a bigger pregnancy, or does kind of everyone go through that and just it depends on how um, you can react via postpartum?
Yeah, so both. So everybody's going to get some degree of diastasis recti during pregnancy. Again, it's your body's natural way. But you can be really proactive, which of course I didn't know, but you can be very proactive during pregnancy and keep your deep core muscles really strong and activated. And this can reduce the extent of diastasis recti that you experience both during pregnancy and postpartum. But yes, there's some stuff that's out of our control. Big babies, multiples, age is a contributing factor, weight gain during pregnancy, and of course also if you're retaining fluids, things like that. There's all kinds of conditions that can compound it, but you can be really proactive is the good news. So if you're listening to this and you're pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant, we can really have some degree of proactivity going into pregnancy.
When you say deep core, can you tell us what that actually means?
Yeah, so the easiest way to explain it for people who are not like super into anatomy is to think about your core like a soda can. So at the top, you have your diaphragm, at the bottom, you have your pelvic floor. And then if you think about your muscles all around your back and deep down underneath the six-pack layer, that's your soda can core. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about your deep core muscles. The transverse abdominis is the fancy name for the muscles that run laterally. They're like shoelaces. Like I always say, look down at your shoelaces. That's what your transverse abdominals sort of appear to be like. So they run laterally, and just like a shoelace, right? They can stretch out. I know people can't see here, but they stretch out. And that's what we want to really work to keep those shoelaces tight, if you think about them like that.
Yeah. And so is this good for anyone maybe not pregnant as well?
Hell yes. Yeah. Tara's slow pitching me questions here.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Really important. So if you experience back pain, so take me for example. I like to use myself as like a walking educational poster board. I did CrossFit. I lifted super heavy. I did Olympic lifting. I did all the things. And I very much pre-pregnancy with the twins had what I call Ninja Turtle abs. Have you seen, do you know what I'm talking about? Like where you're like, it's like a muscle gut. It's like, yes, you've got
Yeah, they're like puffy looking kind of.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like really strong,
Yeah.
really jacked, but almost like your gut sticks out but has a bunch of muscles on it. It's like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it other than like a Ninja Turtle shell.
Yeah, it makes sense actually. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so even going into the pregnancy, I had a really weak transverse abdominals.
Yeah.
And I would always have like, even as a teenager, like nagging low back tightness. Just like if I went to a concert, it was hard for me to stand for a long period of time.
Right.
So those are the muscles that act like your body's natural corset. So not only do they like suck it in, but they also provide support like a brace. And so if you don't have those suckers strong and you're overdeveloping your rectus abs, those six-pack abs, it's gonna catch up with you. So again, like why aren't we teaching people how to use their transverse abdominals and breathe properly?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to just keep throwing questions at you. You said it's going to catch up with you. I'm putting that in quotes. What does that mean?
Back pain, hip pain that just is constantly nagging. Even you might experience like constant headaches because you're going to compensate, right? The body's super smart. So if we're not using the muscles that we're supposed to use in a lift or in an exercise, and we don't have that strength and stability, your body's not, it's still going to lift the weight, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to do it by using muscles that shouldn't be doing that job.
Yes, of course. Okay. So if we're looking at, and some people can watch this on YouTube. So if they want to like see our hands and what we're doing with our facial expressions, feel free. But I wanted to talk about some exercises that could potentially help you find your deep core or transverse. Do you think you can walk through a couple exercises, just like talking through, and people would understand it?
Totally. So if you're listening to this, I want you to sit upright, get on those butt bones at the bottom, nice and tall, you're stacked. Now take your hands and I want you to put them, those of you who can see, I want you to put them on your rib cage. Now what we do as women is we suck in a lot, right? Tara, I know you're like on board with this, like, because we feel like we have to be skinny and smaller and take up less space. So we've been sucking in for decades. So we're going to first start by not sucking in. That's our first goal. So you're just going to relax, like literally let it go. Now you're going to inhale down into your body. You should feel your ribs expand. Overflow should go down into tummy. This is the first thing I want you to practice. I want you to do 5-6 breaths there. We don't have to do it here, but if you're at home, pause it.
Yes.
Take your breaths. So inhale down. Your ribs are opening like an umbrella. Overflow is going down into tummy. Now, once you've got the hang of that, and that's often the hardest part, because 99% of the time when I tell women to inhale, they go like this.
Chest. Yeah.
Go up into their chest, their shoulders lift, everything rises, and
Yeah.
their tummy sucks in, right? It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So however you're used to breathing, when somebody tells you to take a deep inhale, do it the opposite. So down into your ribs, overflow into belly. Now on your exhale, what I want you to do is to lift your pelvic floor like a Kegel, and then to pull your belly button in and up. So we got that inhale, inhale. Everything relaxes, exhale. It's almost like a wave rolling up, right? So
Yeah.
as we inhale, that wave is coming into shore. As we exhale, that wave is rolling out. That's your deep core. Like, if you have not worked that, you're going to feel that sensation really quickly and be like, oh my gosh.
I'll tell you, I went to a pelvic floor therapist recently and she told me to breathe. And the first thing I did was like puff at my chest. And she's like, all right, let's stop there. And I was like, oh shit, I do have a lot of work to do.
That was my same experience. I went in
Yeah.
as an athlete, like,
Yeah.
and she was like, okay, we're going to breathe. I was like, we're going to what?
Yeah.
We're going to breathe.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay. So inhale, expand the belly, exhale, pull up and in. Now, if you are someone that might have a tight pelvic floor, are you still wanting to feel that kind of Kegel tightness to feel this brace of the core or feel the deep core?
That's a really good question. So when you activate the pelvic floor, it's automatically going to activate the low abs. They kind of go hand in hand. It's pretty hard to isolate one without the other. But
Yeah.
if you have a hypertonic pelvic floor, which is a tight pelvic floor, which a lot of athlete women have,
Yeah.
we think we leak because it's, too weak. It needs to be stronger. And it's actually quite the opposite. It's that
Yeah.
it's tight. I know you shared some of your own journey with
Yeah.
that. So thank you for doing that.
Of
I
course.
think it's important to be vulnerable in that space. So you're still going to want to do it, but you really want to focus on the inhale. So ladies who have a hypertonic pelvic floor, the most important thing is to inhale. And I would have you practicing that without even activating your pelvic floor, without even activating your transverse abdominals, like separately, right? They're two different things. Learning to engage your core, one thing.
Yeah.
Learning to relax your pelvic floor, that's another thing.
Total other
So
thing.
if you have a hypertonic tight pelvic floor, which you might know because you get pelvic floor tightness and pain, you can have constipation, feeling like a tampon is coming out, leaking, tension headaches. Those are some signs of a tight pelvic floor versus a weak pelvic floor. You really want to focus on that inhale. And I would just have you do that laying down at night. Put your feet up on a couch, back is on the ground, and you're
Yeah.
placing your hand on those ribs. You're letting go of your freaking tummy.
Yeah.
Breathe and really hold that expand. Think about your pelvic floor almost like a trap door, and you're letting that door open.
Yeah.
Then exhale, just let it naturally recoil. But our diaphragm and our pelvic floor work hand in hand, and that's why on that inhale, if you're breathing down into your body, it's going to help relax your pelvic floor on every breath you take throughout the day.
Yeah.
So retrain that brain.
Yes, which is hard for athletes out there. I know. I feel you. I'm with you on this. I had a pelvic floor therapist on recently. So if you want to listen to that whole episode, I'll link it in the show notes as well. But this is really important, not just for pre and postpartum, obviously for athletes and just people alike, to making sure that you are using your transverse abdominals. And just like Ashley just said, we're not doing V-ups or, hanging knee tucks or something. We're literally just breathing. And so much of what we do just starts with coming back to our breath. So if you are looking to have a child though, what are some like ways to kind of prep your body to get ready for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I recommend seeing a pelvic floor PT. Like, if you know that you're going to have a baby, like, why not get ahead of the curve and learn those skills?
Yeah.
Learning to activate that deep core, getting that really nice and strong. And then, of course, mindset, I think, is a big shift. You don't have to
Yeah.
change a ton of stuff while you're working toward getting pregnant, but I would start adding in that deep core exercise work. Like I said, regardless, but definitely if you're planning on getting pregnant. And I would work on learning to relax your pelvic floor because throughout pregnancy, it's really important, especially at the end of pregnancy, to know how to let your pelvic floor relax because your pelvic floor has to get out of the way to birth a baby.
Yeah.
So working on that so that you can have a smoother delivery when the time comes, also really important.
How do you know what to modify or what to actually do as you are pregnant and getting closer to your due date?
Yeah, so the beginning of pregnancy, you don't have to modify a whole lot. I do recommend like keeping things lower impact. So when you are pregnant, you're asking a lot of your pelvic floor. There's added weight, there's hormones that make things more lax. And so you want to be smart with your training. I always say risk versus reward, and it can be hard for the athlete mom to switch over. I think we want to be like tough throughout, and you can certainly train, but thinking about going lower impact. So, not really going for your 1 rep max, I'd say. Can
Yeah.
you still lift heavy? Absolutely. But, you're not trying to go all out in everything. Same thing for running, can you run throughout pregnancy if your pelvic floor tolerates it? Sure. But
Yeah.
are you gonna go run a marathon? Arguably, probably not. So being smart with your training and knowing that it's temporary is probably the best piece of advice I can give. We feel like it's forever. And I think our culture also makes it so that we feel like we have to prove ourselves, like we're more of a woman if we like keep our fitness level. But it's okay to tailor, bring things back a little bit. In the second, third trimester, being off of your back, like flat on your back, can make women really dizzy because there's a blood flow that goes to the brain, the vena cava, and the baby is I actually almost passed out during an ultrasound. So it's real. It's real. If you're flat on your back, it can really affect you. So especially under load, right? If you're bench pressing,
Right.
you want to make sure you're on like an incline. And then in terms of core exercises to modify, I ditch sit-ups and crunches. I tell my slam moms, ditch sit-ups and crunches out the gate. We have much smarter core training for pregnancy than that. So kind of swapping out those traditional core exercises that we think of, like you said, V-ups, toes to bar, knees to elbows, those kinds of things with more of that deep core work that's really going to set us up to have a strong and supported pregnancy.
Awesome. Those are really easy modifications to like just have in your head, but also as what Ashley said, like check in with your body. And if something doesn't feel right, don't push past it. And obviously, Ashley has a really great program if you are looking to that. So, what about postpartum? Is it the same kind of like when do you know when to get back into it? How do you know what to modify? And is it different for every person?
So what's really cool about our bodies is that they tell us a lot if we listen. Now, the problem
Yeah.
with athlete women, and I know a lot of women listening to your podcast are probably in that category,
Yeah.
is that we literally have trained our brains not to listen to our bodies, right? We've trained ourselves to push through. That's literally what we've done since we were children as athletes. So you're going to listen to your body. Your body gives really great signals that it's either happy or not happy, things you can watch out for. I always say, look at your tummy postpartum. When you're doing an exercise, do you see coning or doming? It's like I described, that little football shape or a ridge kind of popping out. And
Yeah.
that's your body saying, hey, I don't really like this move yet. Can we modify it? Can we try engaging our core differently and try it again? The other thing you want to be mindful of postpartum is, are you leaking? Right? That's another sign. Do you feel heaviness? Prolapse is really common in women who have had a vaginal delivery. So you want to be mindful if you're feeling any heaviness. So listening to your body's signals and not pushing through.
Hey talkers, are you ready for a boost with your fitness journey? Use code TerraTalk to save 20% off your first order of Legion, aka your new best friend for high quality supplements. Now, why is Legion the best? Because whether you're aiming to feel stronger, more energized, or just a little more badass every day, Legion's got you. Their products nourish your body and enhance your performance without any unnecessary fillers or fluff, and it's backed by real deal scientific research. Plus, they taste so good, you'll actually look forward to chugging down your protein shake. I know I do. And they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. What's not to love about that? So, what are you waiting for? Embrace the journey to becoming the best version of yourself with Legion Athletics by your side. Head over to their website now and use code TerraTalk for 20% off your first order and double loyalty cashback on every order after. Your support through Legion helps keep the podcast as a free source of content, so your support really does matter. So head on over to Legion and enjoy the rest of the show.
What is prolapse?
That's where one or more of your pelvic organs descend from where they are supposed to be down into the vaginal canal. It can affect your uterus, your bladder, or your rectum. So And it's graded on different stages. I don't know how detailed I'm gonna get. It's graded on different stages. So anywhere from a stage 1, which is pretty mild, to a stage 4, which is more severe. You can check yourself at home. Certainly a pelvic floor PT can check you, and an OBGYN should also be able to assess you. Really common to have some degree of it. I recently did an interview with a pelvic floor PT who shared a study with me. 90% of women who have had a vaginal delivery have some degree of prolapse. Like, that's a
Crazy.
lot.
It's a lot of people. And honestly, like just over the past couple of years, I even like learned what that was. And I was like, why am I almost in my mid-30s and don't know what these things are? Like, why aren't we taught these things?
Yeah.
And then I've actually had a recent friend of mine go through this, and she's like, her doctor actually told her that she couldn't lift anymore. She was like, yeah, I can't, she's like, yeah, I shouldn't lift. And I was like, let me send you to Ashley. So I did send her to you, but what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. How PG do I have to keep this?
No, keep it. Tell us everything.
I think it's a horrible recommendation. A lot of women who have prolapse have other kids. You're not supposed to pick up your kid who's 20, 30 pounds, your 40-pound toddler. You're not going to hold them because you have prolapse. Like, why wouldn't we teach women how to lift safely with a prolapse? Now, again, do we have to go for a 1 rep max? No. It's like risk versus reward again. Like, if you're dealing with prolapse symptoms, let's stay within a healthy threshold for your body at that point in time. Can you eventually get back up to a 1 rep max lift? Absolutely. I believe you can. But we need to take steps. Now, should you avoid squatting, which is another common, like, are you going to ever bend down and pick up your kids' toys? Like, I don't understand the recommendations. It really makes me feel 10 out of 10 angry. 10 out of 10 angry.
I can feel it. And you're not an angry woman, but she just got angry, you guys.
I just got angry. It's because, like, if you just teach women how to do it, instead of putting this blanket statement that we can't do things, like, and that was what was really life-changing when I first went to pelvic floor PT. It was like, okay, you want to do pull-ups again? Okay, like, we'll get you there. And that should be the mindset of any coach that you're working with or any practitioner that you're working with. It's not, you can't do this. It's maybe you can't do this yet. Let's give you the tools. Let's build it up in a progressive way that'll get you doing it in a healthy way.
How long on average do you think it takes to like get rid of your prolapse? Or is it always something you kind of just like have or have to think about in your training?
Yeah. So it becomes second nature, which is really first nature, how to do things properly. So you're rewiring your brain. So at first you're thinking about it a ton. You probably know from your own experience with pelvic floor PT, you're like, oh my gosh, like, having to think about my breath, and I'm having to think about my posture, and I'm having to think about this. But once you retrain that mind, it becomes second nature. You go to lift a heavy bag of dog food, big exhales, I lift this, lift that pelvic floor for support, and it's second nature. So you think about it more at the beginning. You can get to the place where you're less symptomatic, for sure. I would say if you are symptomatic with a prolapse, you want to wear a pessary, like, no shame. That's a support that you wear internally to kind of hold. It's kind of like a sports bra for your pelvic organs.
Okay.
So use that if you need to, if you're feeling symptomatic. Definitely see a pelvic floor PT. Try an exercise program before jumping into surgery. So there's definitely ways you can vastly improve it. Now, for timeline, it really varies. Everybody's timeline. I can't even throw out one because it's from woman to woman so different.
How do you know what stage you're at? You said they were 4 stages of prolapse, or is that something you would go see someone for?
Yeah, you'd go see someone for it, but you can tell based on how far into the vaginal canal the pelvic organ is. But having somebody properly check you and tell you the stage. I do have a self-check on my app from a pelvic floor PT who shows you how to do it at home, so you can kind of get an idea, especially if you're like nervous or embarrassed to go in, which, you don't have to be. I just want you to know this is like their profession. This is what they do all day, every day, and there's no shame around it. But if you feel more comfortable checking at home, I do have a little self-check on there.
And then you said something about surgery. Is that something that someone would potentially need depending on what stage they are?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can. Like I said, I would exhaust everything before choosing that. But if at some point you decide that that's what you need, and your physician and you both decide that that's what's better for your health, then you definitely want to do it. Now, that said, you're going to have a much better success rate. I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm not going to spit them out, but there's a very high failure rate with prolapse surgeries having recurrences because of not being taught these tools on how to lift things, how to use your breath, how to manage the pressure inside your core. So even if you have surgery, if you don't know how to manage that core pressure, same thing with diastasis recti, if you have a tummy tuck and you don't know how to manage that pressure, you could end up with some of the same issues, the same symptoms again down the road. So make sure you've really educated yourself before going into surgery.
How do you educate someone on like, don't listen to your doctor because they said this, to get them into your program or to try something else?
I wouldn't say like don't listen to your doctor. Of course, take your doctor's advice with a grain of salt and go
Yeah.
get a second opinion is what I would say from a pelvic floor PT. Like I wouldn't even push, like if somebody's really dealing with something, exercise can help. But I'm not going to say that mine is like a fix all. Like you're going to want a pelvic floor PT. And that's
Yeah.
not what I do. I'm not going to be able to check you one-on-one. I'm not going to be able to check you internally. Like
Right.
my job is to strengthen your body,
Right.
working with those issues. So definitely seeing a pelvic floor PT before you make any decisions with a doctor. That's how
And now,
passionate I'm about pelvic floor PT.
I love that. And I love that you also, because you said there was a pelvic floor PT that actually was in your app and like has some
Oh,
programming
I have
or
a
something
ton
in
of
there.
them. I built
Okay.
it with pelvic floor PTs. That was really important to me. I was like, I'm
Okay.
bringing the village to the ladies.
I love that.
So there's a whole health section in the app
Yeah.
that you can search by symptom, you can search by issue. And then I also, throughout the program, like on our rest days, you're always getting a tip from a pelvic floor PT or a doula,
Yeah.
some kind of expert, right?
Okay. And it's, I mean, obviously it's strong like a mother, so it's very mother specific.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can benefit, right? We all have pelvic floors. Yes.
Like even if
And
I'm not a
leaking is
mom.
like 40% of like athlete women leak without having babies. So yes,
Yeah.
while I built it for moms, it's
Yeah.
truly for any woman.
It's also just, I know you saw that I've kind of been talking about it a little bit more. People in my comment and like messages were like, oh my God, I thought it was just me. I thought I had to be pregnant for this to happen or have had a kid in the past. Or it's like, no, it's actually like a lot more common than people think, especially in athletes. So yeah, I again send everybody to you because you're
Thank you.
a wealth of knowledge, but it's just nice to be able to like have these open conversations with even your friends and family around you so that you don't feel as alone or feel like embarrassed or feel shame for any of these symptoms, really.
That was one of the things I noticed with my own experience. I started just talking to people. Like I'd be like at the
Yeah.
Trader Joe's checkout and they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I help women with their pelvic floor, and the woman's like, oh my gosh, I just leaked. I was just putting like juice boxes up on the shelf and I leaked. Oh my gosh. And so when you open up, then people share their own experience. So not only does it help them feel less alone, it helps you feel less alone. And
Yeah.
then we can also get to the point where we're like, okay, we don't have to normalize this.
Yeah. Because
We
it's
don't have
not
to
normal. It's not
no.
normal to just leak when you're putting a box on the shelf. Like it's just not
No.
normal for that. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we talked a lot about it's how do you say diastasis? Diastasis? I feel like every time I say this, I say it wrong.
Diastasis recti. You could just call it DR.
That's why I said it in your email. I was like, we're going to talk about DR and prolapse because it's easier to say. Okay. So you now as an athlete, you're CrossFit, you had twins. How old are they now? They're like 7-ish, right?
They're 10.
Oh, they're 10. Wow, they're already 10. So are
Yeah.
you still actively working on these things in your body, or do you feel like you have a pretty good understanding and can do 1 rep maxes, CrossFit, all this stuff now?
Yeah, I can do everything now, which is so cool. I like sprint on the treadmill and I
Awesome.
deadlift heavy and I can do everything. That said, I
Yeah.
know how to fire my deep core, right? That's what we were talking about. It's like when I'm
Right.
doing these activities, I know how to do it. I don't even have to hardly think about it. So
Right.
I'm lifting very differently than I did when I was doing CrossFit and things like that because my brain is just different. I have this whole system that I hadn't tapped into in my 20s. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I wonder how strong I would have been if I had known.
Yeah. How do you like to work out now yourself?
I mean, like in terms of like what do I do? I don't
Yeah.
know if
Like
you
how
could
are you
label it.
programming your own stuff?
How am I programming? All right, now I'm working on Slam Elite, which is going to be my barbell program for
Awesome.
moms. So it's kind of like they've healed, they've gotten to that threshold where like they're not symptomatic with these issues and they want to lift a little heavier.
Yeah.
So I'm doing heavier barbell work right now,
Cool.
incorporating sprinting once or twice a week, which is really fun. And
Yeah.
then for core work, I still do the deep core work because it's way more freaking effective than doing sit-ups. So even though
Yeah.
I'm really healed, like I have no desire to do like boot camp sit-ups.
I don't know if I don't know if anyone really needs to do sit-ups though,
I
right?
don't think so either.
Like there's just so many other better core exercises to
I mean,
do.
you still need to work your rectus, right? Your six-pack muscles.
Yeah.
But they get worked in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
And you know, they're pretty boring, I think. Now that I know, I remember when I first got told like
Yeah.
not to do sit-ups and crunches, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And like now, like the core program, I have a program that's just all core stuff.
Yeah.
And there's 300 different unique core exercises in it for your deep core muscles. So I'm like,
What is
oh, I figured it out.
what's your favorite core move right now?
Mm. Oh man, putting me on the spot.
Mm.
Probably any variation of a bird dog because you can do like a million variations, like making it harder. You can do it up on a bench and add a row. You can do
Yeah.
it with a ball. So you're really working that upper abs where you're getting those ribs down.
Yeah.
There's like 5,000 variations just of a bird dog alone. And I think it's such a good
Yeah.
cross body, really working those fibers.
Any other exercises you feel like most people don't do that potentially they could add into their programming to really feel the deep core?
Oh. You know, any variation of like a heel tap while they seem boring. So you're laying on your back, you've got
Yeah.
your feet, you march them up one at a time, and you're dropping your heel down slowly.
Yeah.
Like it looks like such a simple exercise, but I would recommend for low ab activation, just adding those in before or after you lift, just to really ignite those low abs, which I think are really hard for a lot of women to turn on. So
Yeah.
love that move. Core breathing, you practice it every day. I still practice it. I practice it before I get in the shower, just a
Yeah.
couple minutes.
Well, now you're going to remind me I definitely need to core breathe. That is for sure. Okay. So we've talked a lot about deep core and helping, fix DR and prolapse and like making sure that you feel really comfortable in those. What about aesthetics? Because obviously both of us know that that is important for a lot of women, especially as you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to look a certain way. And I think we both agree that like building muscle and strong and taking up space is awesome. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get there, or they're really focused on that. So, how do you help your clients see that the benefit of deep core is awesome, but also with their aesthetics driven goals?
Yeah, it can be really frustrating, especially after we've had babies, because a lot changes that's out of our control, right? Like
Yeah.
I still, no matter how healed I am, I have like pounds of skin on my stomach. Like I just
Yeah.
do. I got stretched really far. So I think what's helpful as a coach is coming in with that perspective. I got asked for 3 years straight if I was pregnant all the time because I was muscular everywhere, but had this pooch, right?
Yeah.
When you have diastasis recti, it often presents as kind of that mommy tummy or that pooch. And so it can be really frustrating. I think what got me through personally, and I always share this with all my Strong Like a Mother women, is like, think about what your body does,
Yeah.
right? Think about what it just did. Like those of us who have birthed children, even if you haven't, think about what your body did today. Did you go for a walk, Tara? Your
Yeah. Of
legs
course.
took you,
Yeah.
right? Did
Yeah.
you lift weights today? It's like your body's doing all these great things. Did it carry in the groceries for you? So reminding yourself that your body does these
Yeah.
great things for you can help you when you're feeling frustrated with the aesthetics. The aesthetics will come. I would say this, if aesthetics is your only goal, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to quit
Yeah.
because it's slow.
Yeah.
It's slower than you want it to be, and it sucks. So if you can remind yourself along the way that like your body does good things and that every day that you're showing up for yourself, it's good for your mental health. It's good for your body in terms of not just how it looks, but in how it functions. Like you can
Yeah.
hold your kid maybe longer without back pain. Like these things matter. So focusing on those little wins, I call them non-scale victories,
Yeah.
it really is going to help you so that you can stay motivated until the aesthetic part comes. The aesthetic part will follow, but
Is it true that this could be like, is it true that before it's easier, quote unquote, easier to get in shape pre-kid than it is after?
I don't think so. In fact, I would say like you can get in I would say arguably I'm in better shape now and I'm 40 years old and have
I love
4
that.
kids. But um I think it goes okay. So here's what I'm going to say about that. I had to think of how to
Yeah.
word this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's easier to have some aesthetics that feel important to you, not strength, right? I think those are two different things.
Totally. Yeah.
Can we do something about stretch marks? Not really. Can we do something about skin on our tummies? No. But can you really build tremendous strength? Yeah, I for sure was stronger postpartum than I ever was before having kids.
Yeah. Do you ever mourn your old pre-pregnancy body or who you were then?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I would be like a fraud if I just were like, oh, it's all rainbows and butterflies and body positivity. It's like the skin is what frustrates me. Like if we're just having a heart to heart, like I have a lot of skin. And it bothers me in clothes. And I've considered surgery for it, right? I've done all this work to heal and I'm still like, oh gosh, the skin, I have like pounds of the skin. And it makes it hard to wear jeans that fit right. And so there are things, like I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
For sure.
And when I get frustrated, I remind myself, I'm like, you know what? You're hella strong.
Yeah.
Your body does great things for you. And so just coming back to that has really helped me.
Yeah.
And the further I get out from that early postpartum is like, I almost forget that pre-baby body. And now I can celebrate the softness of my new one a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to go back and forth, like sit in the uncomfortable and like, yeah, I don't feel awesome in my body, but also look at all the stuff that I'm able to do and it has done for me. Did you go through a postpartum situation, like postpartum depression or anything like that?
No, I mean, I was like frustrated, with
Yeah.
my body. I had back pain really badly. It was
Okay.
like I had twins, like you're just trudging to get through the day. But no, luckily I did not end up with postpartum depression, which was great.
Okay.
I also
Yeah.
want to add on like that last question because I'm
For
just
sure.
still stewing on it.
Yeah.
Like, were we ever happy even before having babies in our body? Like, I'm going to throw that out there for us to chew on too. And so I think thinking about that, like, right, I don't know about people listening. I always thought my boobs were too small or I wasn't curvy enough. I mean, I've always thought, so that's pre-baby. So I think we mourn everybody because we're trying to live up to some female ideal that's put in our face constantly that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. And I mean, even on that same note, sometimes I'll ask clients, they'll be like, I just want to look like this. And they'll show me a photo of them when they were 24 in the swimsuit. And I'm like, how are you doing mentally in there? And they'd be like, well, like I wasn't in like that great of a spot. I was kind of in this like weird spot with eating and I didn't have a really great relationship with myself. And I was like, so do you want to feel like that again? Or did you want to just look like that? Because those are two totally different things. And when we look at exactly what you're saying, like, did we ever feel super comfortable and happy in that skin? Like, did we? Were we actually like healthy with our eating and our movement? Or was it just like solely based on looks?
Totally.
Yeah. And it's all really societal pressure anyway. Like we can go into unfollow social media accounts that make you feel like shit or make you feel smaller or like a different version of yourself. But I think with being a mom, it's so important to hear from people like you of yes, it's hard, but also there's so much you can get out of it if you just take a step back and be like, I made these children.
Right.
Like, look at what I've done,
Yeah. High five yourself.
Yes. What you recently adopted a baby, you said, was that kind of all in the plan, or can you share a little bit more about that experience?
Yeah. I just felt like there was one more human out there for me, and I wasn't sure in which way it would come. We had always thought about adoption, but adoption is really complicated. Like people are always like, I don't like, why would you go through IVF? Like, why wouldn't you just like get a baby? I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like it's complicated. And so we thought about adopting, but we had run into some hiccups trying to adopt because they don't want you to have kids oftentimes. They want you to be of a certain religion. And so it was really challenging to find a situation. And it was like the craziest story, but I was like, you can't just get a kid, but then I just kind of got a kid, but that's not the norm.
Yeah.
I was on Instagram and I had just mentioned that we, were thinking about it. And literally like 10 minutes later, somebody messaged me and was like, I think I know somebody.
No way.
I swear.
10 minutes later.
It was a weird, like, so we kept getting, my uncle had just passed away. We kept getting all fours on this card game. And my oldest said, like, while we were on Instagram, I was just sharing, like, oh my gosh, how crazy is this? Like, I keep getting fours. He's like, I think it means you need a fourth kid, mom. He's like, just joking. And I was like, I know I need to get my act together with adopting. 10 minutes later, somebody's like, and then 3 months later, I got to catch Cade coming out of the womb. It was so special.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That 3 months
really,
later too.
yeah. And I like literally looked at him like, shortly after he was born, and I was like, there you are. Like, I knew I was missing him. So I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it other than that. And now I really feel like our family's complete.
Oh, I love that. What was the process like then after you had got this Instagram message and like the 3 months after that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I ended up getting in contact with the birth mom. I'll skip the
Yeah.
steps to get there.
Yeah.
And we met the birth mom and the birth father
Okay.
in August. And literally that day, like after we had lunch with them, she's like, yeah, I'd like you to be his parents. And we got attorneys. That's how you have to do it when you do it privately. So you get an attorney for them and an attorney for you.
Right.
And pretty seamless. I got to go to all the appointments
Wow.
with her and
Yeah.
be there for the birth, and it was pretty straightforward. I think we had
Yeah.
not the norm
Yeah.
experience for adoption. Like being in the adoption community, it's usually far more complicated than that. But so we did a private open adoption. So we stay
Okay.
in touch with birth mom,
Okay.
get to see her a few times. She lives in town. So you can also do foster to adopt as an option if you're out there
Right.
considering adoption. There's lots of different avenues, but for us, we really wanted to do the open adoption if possible.
Right. And wow, what 10 minutes late, like it all kind of came to fruition. How long were you kind of thinking about it before you were like, this would make it complete?
I mean, I literally thought about it since before I had the twins. Like,
Okay.
to be honest,
Yeah.
like, so my husband had had a vasectomy.
Okay. Okay.
And then he has two older kids. So he had had a vasectomy and then he
Okay.
had it reversed, but it wasn't successful enough. It was successful enough, this is like way too much information publicly, but that's okay. We're just gonna go here.
If
Um,
you're okay with it. I mean,
yeah,
not if you're
yeah, I
not.
am. It's fine. I'm an open book. He had enough sperm to give a sample, but not to get me pregnant. We'll put it that way. So we had to
Got
do
it.
IVF with ICSI, where they basically take the sperm and stick it right into the egg. So it's a whole process. But after that, I was like, I don't want to go through full blown IVF again. Like I
Right.
knew that there was this other soul out there, but
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not putting my body through. It's a lot. Like IVF moms have to
Through a
go through it.
lot.
So I
Yeah.
said, um, I really would like to adopt
Yeah.
instead of trying in this other way. And like I said, we probably would have done it before the twins, but I wasn't sure how to go about it at that
Yeah.
time.
And you always had in your mind to make it open as well, an open
Yeah.
adoption.
Yeah. I mean, I just, from everything I read and saw,
Yeah.
like if you can foster that relationship, it's really helpful for the child to know where they came from. Obviously, not all situations
Right. Of course.
can have that.
Yeah.
But if it's possible, there's a lot of benefits for the child. And I think it's really beautiful to know their birth parents and to have that relationship. And she
Yeah.
became a friend, really,
Yeah.
throughout the process. It's not without its own struggles. It's not like
Sure.
anybody placing a child for adoption has to think about that in a really profound way. It's a hard choice, but
Yeah.
considering all things, I think there's a lot of benefits to keeping a relationship if you can.
Thank you for sharing all of that, by the way. I feel like there's just so many things that aren't talked about. Like there's just so many things people don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have a community of people or like resources for adoption that you can maybe share with people or no?
I don't. I
That's
don't.
okay. Do you have people that you talk to right now, or is it like this was just like this was your thing anyway, and you knew you were going to do it?
So I've got a number. So my very best friend adopted. She adopted from
Okay.
Korea. And
Okay.
then I have another really close friend who did the foster to adopt. So I had seen kind of
Got it.
different ways.
Yeah.
And then birth mom actually had placed one other child up for adoption. And
Okay.
so I'm very close with that family. So
Okay.
they have his bio brother, Cade's bio brother. And so we joke,
Yeah.
we call each other sister moms.
Oh yeah. There you
We're
go.
like raising these kids. So they're bio brothers and we
Okay.
see each other often. So I feel like I have, some adoption connection
Yeah,
there.
that's like another village that you have, right? You have this like
Totally.
community over here and then over here. So that's so interesting. And again, thank you for sharing about that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was super helpful for people to hear. So I like to ask everyone that comes on the show, like, what is one thing that you wish you knew before you started your fitness and wellness journey?
I mean, can I go with the obvious? Like,
You can do whatever
train
you
your
want.
deep freaking core muscles.
Yeah.
Like, train them. Like, I didn't even know what they were. I thought core exercise meant sit-ups.
Yeah.
No clue. There's this entire system. It will help you feel so much rock solid in your lifts. It's
Yeah.
going to prevent back pain in all of your daily life activities. I always joke, I'm like, it makes you feel like a superhero. And that's not even me being dramatic. Like, learning how to breathe and engage your core properly, superhero status.
I love that. Yeah. So where can people find you? Where can people learn about your program and just learn more about you and all things you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube at Get Mom Strong. You can find all the information about my programs on getmomstrong.com. And then I'm also in both the App Store and Google Play.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all your information, wealth of knowledge, and just thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to this Tara Talk. I hope you're taking something away from this episode, and if so, I would love to hear about it. You can connect with me at The Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara on Instagram. A few ways you can help support the show and help spread the word. You can share it on Instagram, tag at The Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara. Send an episode to a friend, and please leave a review if the show is resonating with you. It takes just a few minutes, and it means so much to help this show grow, and it helps me to continue to bring on badass guests for all of us to learn and grow from. I am so happy you're here and excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time, be a badass with a good ass.